Hello everyone, and if you're from Spain, then hola, and welcome to Understandable English. This video is a part of the travel series that I have recently started, where I talk about the different places and things that I have seen and what I thought about them. And I do this in a very relaxed and understandable way in English. This way you can learn about the world while also learning English at the same time. So today I'm going to tell you a bit about my trip to Spain. Now, this trip was not a typical tourist trip that you might think about going to the beach to relax and go sightseeing. But I came to Spain to study abroad or as an exchange student. I was a student who was going to a Spanish university for just a little bit. In the United States, where I went to university, I was a chemical engineering student, and I studied at the University of Wisconsin. And for our capstone project, that is the most important final course that you must do in order to finish your university, to graduate, and to get your diploma. Well, this capstone project or course was this long summer project that you would normally do in Wisconsin, where the university was. But you could also apply or request to do this in Spain or Austria as well. And since I had studied Spanish a little bit in school, and I had always wanted to visit a Spanish-speaking country, I decided that, well, I'll put in my application or write a letter with some information about myself to apply or try to get permission to do my lab work in my capstone course in Spain. Once they received my application, they looked at it and they accepted my application. So that means I got to go to Spain. So I bought my airplane tickets, I packed my bags, and I set off or went to enjoy a summer in Spain. Little did I know this summer was going to be one of the most stressful summers of my whole life. But I'll tell you a bit more about that later. So I spent 8 weeks of my summer in Spain, and you might think I probably saw all of the most tourist spots. I was in Madrid and Barcelona, but you are incorrect. I did not see Madrid, I did not see Barcelona. I was only in the Asturias region in the north, and I was in the city of Oviedo. Now, if you have watched some of my channel before, you probably know that I really like nature and mountains and hiking. So I was excited to learn that this region was in the mountains. And so when I had some free time, I could walk a little bit in the mountains and climb and look down and see the city below me. So I really liked this aspect of the city of Oviedo. This city or town very much had two sides. Some people would consider it a retirement town because it's kind of quiet and it's up in the mountains, it's beautiful, very relaxed. But on the other side, it was also a student town with a university, lots of young people, and so there was very much a active student life happening as well. One of the first things that I noticed and continued to notice throughout my time in Oviedo was that there were so many dogs. I think I saw at least 1,000 different dogs, people walking in the parks with them. They were just chilling or hanging out on the street. It was such an interesting thing to see. It also seemed that there was some sort of party or festival happening in the city every day during the summer. So it was interesting to see all these people gathered and having fun all the time. And I don't know if I was just unlucky or what happened, but it seemed that it was rainy or cloudy every day. So I didn't see the sun as much as I expected when I learned that I was going to go to Spain for the summer. Also, I really liked in this region how the sun stayed up very late in the day. Because of the location of Spain and Oviedo in its time zone, it meant that the sun stayed up quite late, even though we weren't that far north like other places in Europe. And so it was very nice in the evening to walk in the park or in the city. Even though it was late, you still had a good amount of light to enjoy. But you might be thinking, well, if this is such a cute and quiet and relaxing little town, then why was your summer so stressful? What made it so crazy? Well, it all has to do with this capstone program that I told you about. And so this was an 8-week program, and it was 5 days a week, spending about 7 or 8 hours every day, Monday through Friday, in the laboratory. And this was stressful because we were doing very long experiments, and if you made a mistake or did something wrong or something broke, well, you just had to start over, and so you lost a lot of time if you made a mistake. Other than this, we had to write 2 massive reports every week. And so we would spend 7 or 8 hours in the lab. We would come back to our dormitory. We would crunch the data, that is, we would analyze the data. We would do the math and write pages and pages, maybe 20 or 30 pages sometimes for each report. And we would do this twice a week. So we had very, very little free time, and we needed to be very efficient with everything we did so that we could finish on time. The reason this was so stressful was because, well, this lab or capstone project was the culmination, the big finish of all of the work we had done in our university. So they wanted to be sure that we were ready to get our diploma. So that is why it was so rigorous and stressful. But as I said, we lived in a dormitory, so a place typically where students live. And this was a very interesting dormitory because it was a mixed dorm between students and also a retirement home or a home for older people. And so it was interesting because in the summer there were not any other Spanish students, just the other American students who had come to visit and do their capstone. And there were a bunch of older people in there as well. So it was a very strange mix of people. But in order to get rid of some of the stress from the lab, I would go for runs in the park, or even there was a small gym in the dormitory that you could work out in. And the person that I remember the most was this old man who would only run if he was smoking cigarettes. And so it was very interesting to watch as he would run on the treadmill or outside in the park and smoke at the same time. To me, that was very interesting. But as we say in English, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And so I also had the chance to do some other things that were a bit more fun on my weekends, even though the rest of my time was very stressed. I visited some mountains, the Picos de Europa, and they were very beautiful. I enjoyed this luscious green view, these steep cliffs, and I also really liked to see how there were these little villages and there were shepherds with their sheep in the mountains. It was wonderful to see. They also say that in the olden days, when people were sailing on boats from Europe to the Americas, that the first part of Europe that you could see when you were out in the ocean were these Picos de Europa, these mountains that were there on the continent. We also got a chance to travel to Burgos, which has this amazing, massive Gothic cathedral. And it was my first time seeing Gothic architecture in real life, and I was blown away. It was so beautiful and so different and so interesting from anything I had seen before, and I was just spending my time staring, looking at it, and enjoying the beautiful, beautiful architecture. Of course, in this part of Spain, the Camino de Santiago is very famous. This is a pilgrimage route, a route where different religious people will walk in order to have some sort of ceremony. And of course, I did not walk the whole thing because I did not have the time, but I got to walk parts of it and see different villages along the way and explore it in this sense. Of course, when people talk about Spain, often they think about the food, and the tapas were wonderful. I enjoyed them very much. But the one thing that I could not understand as an American who typically eats dinner around 5 or 6 p.m., it was crazy that you guys wait until 10 or sometimes 11 p.m. just to have dinner. By that time, I already want to sleep, and you guys are just thinking about dinner. So that was difficult sometimes when I was looking for food at my normal time of 6 p.m. and nothing was open. If I walked into a restaurant, they would laugh if I asked for a food menu because, of course, the kitchen is closed. No one else wants food at 5 or 6 p.m. I also got to go up and visit the beach, though it wasn't the warm southern beaches like you think about in the south part of Spain. It was the north, so it was a bit colder, but I was in the city of Gijón. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, so if there's any Spaniards who can fix my pronunciation, I would be very happy. We walked along the beach, we were in the city with all kinds of other pieces of interesting architecture. We relaxed on the beach with this big watermelon that we had bought at the market, and there were these beautiful cliffs. I remember a group of local people who were all dressed as Mario for some reason, and we took pictures of them. And what else? There was this monument where if you stand in the middle of it, all of the sound from the sea reflects into the center where you're standing. And so this sea sound, the waves and all of this, all is very intense, very loud where you're standing. It was a very interesting thing to experience. But if we have to talk about the university, because of course I was a student, not a tourist, I would say that it was wonderful to get the experience to learn and to study in a different place, to see how students are different, how courses are a little bit different, and so on. I also have to say that some of the buildings in this university were so beautiful. One of the libraries that I was in reminded me of Harry Potter. It was so well decorated and so beautiful. I would just want to sit and look at all the different ceiling art and the bookshelves if I could. But after several weeks of extremely tough and rigorous work, we had this final presentation where we had to talk about all of our results, and it was nerve-wracking. It made me nervous because I had to pass this presentation in order to get my diploma. Otherwise, all of this work that I had done was for nothing. So after this nerve-wracking wait, I got news that I passed, and I was so very, very happy. And we had a sort of mini party with our professors in the university. And I remember how, well, in this region, it was very popular to have this type of cider. And they would pour it from above their heads down into the glass, and then you would drink it. And we got to practice doing that, and it was a big fun party at the end of all this stressful work. And after all of this stressful work, I decided that I did not want to go home right away because, well, I was an American in Europe. This was my first time in Europe, and I was excited to finally explore a little bit. So I decided to visit the Baltics in Estonia, in Latvia, Lithuania. So my next video will be about those countries. So subscribe if you're interested, and then you won't miss these videos. So as I continue to ramble about my trip to Spain, I just want to wrap up and say that it was a wonderful experience, and I really enjoyed it. But I do want to go back to Spain and see some other parts of the country because I spent so much time in the north. I would love to see the bigger tourist cities like Madrid or Barcelona and go to the south and enjoy the different parts of Spain, the different regional differences. So if you know a Spaniard, that is someone from Spain, feel free to share this video with them so that they can hear the perspective of a foreigner in their country and also practice their English at the same time. As always, if you learned something new and you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would press like or subscribe so that you can enjoy other English content too. Have a wonderful day. Toodles.